Good morning. It's 10 o'clock, time for our Sunday forum. But maybe not. Jane, have a chair. I didn't realize that was you. I would have called you out earlier. So welcome to our Sunday morning forum. And we're going to learn about all the marketing that's happening at Plymouth from our marketing manager, Elizabeth Blanchette, the person that makes amazing things happen. And we have a marketing committee, which Tim Brunel chairs, so you'll hear about their work. Anyway, and they'd like to have, they'll talk, they'll give their presentation, they'd love to have questions. But when you ask questions, we want you to use the mic. We'll hand you the mic, but I just want to remind everyone of that so that when people are listening at home, they can hear, or remotely or later. If you want to come back and listen to this, you know what the question is. So thanks, enjoy.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. This is going to be fun. So just to start with, so yes, Plymouth Church, 137 years on, etc. We are marketing ourselves. We are selling, we are evangelizing this beloved building and its community, etc. For a variety of reasons. I think the birth of this presentation and the marketing committee and all of the materials that we do come out of a request from the Growth Task Force. So over a year ago, Growth Task Force met. One of the outcomes was the recognition that marketing was a thing that perhaps we could be leveraging to help grow the church, however you want to define growth. And so a group of us met, got together as a Growth Task Force, did an assessment of the range of all of the materials and ways in which we were marketing the church. Looked at, well, are any of them working? Tried to figure out what might marketing contribute to help grow the church in terms of getting more people coming in the door. That was the primary request. We put together a recommendation, presented it last fall to leadership. Leadership said, great, that's fantastic, thank you very much. We agree with all of the assessments there, one of which was to formalize a marketing committee. Believe it or not, Plymouth Church has never had a formal official marketing committee. We've kind of spun things up here and there depending on kind of whatever the issue of the day happens to be, and or someone in a role on staff would create marketing materials. So let's formalize the process. And it really kind of covers a couple of just kind of major points. First off, to just get a sense of what do we mean by marketing? What constitutes marketing? What is and what isn't marketing? So that we have kind of a list of the things that we know we're going to do and the things that we know we're not going to do, right? So we can kind of analyze our resources, and then to kind of figure out, all right, well, what are the audiences that we want to go and speak to? And one of the outcomes of the task force was to recognize that, sure, we could talk to everybody. That would be expensive and challenging and a little bit inefficient. So one of the tasks we did was to define, well, what audiences are we currently kind of set up when you think about programming, when you think about what we offer as a church in terms of where are our strengths. One of them was to look at, well, all of the work that Nina's done is say, we have a lot of content, we have a lot of opportunity for families with young children. So that was one of our first definitions, was to say, if we're going to do outbound marketing, we're going to target families with young children, and I'll talk about that in the second half of this. But to also to kind of set some ground rules to say, data, we live in a day of, an era where people have, lots of these devices and they're on computers and there's a lot of data, so let's consolidate that so we're coming from a place of knowledge and we're not just making things up and being subjective. And then last but not least, to kind of centralize a process. So whatever your organization is, your initiative, whatever activity is occurring here at the church, that there's a centralized process for taking in the request or the knowledge of, hey, there's going to be an event, or there's going to be a new initiative, or we're going to promote some effort, that we follow a systematic process for acknowledging that and then publishing that or promoting it correctly and efficiently. So again, kind of synthesizing things and keeping things organized. So that was a lot of it was kind of housekeeping stuff. So today we're going to talk about kind of what is marketing, like what are the things that we create as an organization to market the church and why, how are they organized. I'm going to walk you through, that'll be Elizabeth's part, I'll walk you through the fall campaign that we are still kind of running right now, and then we've got some requests for all of you in terms of what might this mean for all of us moving forward. So grab a seat. This will be fun. This will be the best Sunday Forum you've ever attended. It's super exciting, said the marketer. All right, so take over.
All right, so we want to take a minute first and we want to talk about the wide diversity that we already are putting out there. So the publications that we put out, the materials, the things that the marketing team is responsible for every day, every week, or every quarter. And this does not encompass all things, but it is a good representation.
I'm guessing the marketing team means you were.
Yep. With some help of some volunteers. So we want to talk through first the printed flame. So when I came here, this was every month, and it was largely used to advertise the upcoming events. So COVID changed that. It made it very hard to commit to having an event in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, when everything was changing and everything was moving online or being canceled or anything. So we did move this quarterly, and we moved it more to be seasonally to represent all of the items that are coming up. I'm going to go here back to my notes for a minute. You'll notice that it has a new design, which coincides with our new purpose and the architecture for it. We have a new cover. There's a new layout inside. We have a different way that we think about how we're putting this material inside of it and how we're using this. A lot of work goes into putting in this publication every month, right? So we've moved it more to what I consider a development tool. This is our opportunity to share with all of the congregation the stories and the impact that we have. So what all of you are doing out there in the community, I want to talk about it here. I want you to read it and have the chance to say, oh cool, look, we have this new every meal program that is serving meals to hundreds of thousands of kids in the school in a confidential way. I love stories like that, and that is what we want to tell now in the Flame. We do use it to advertise, hey, here's what's coming up for Lent and Easter and the activities and things that you want to be a part of. But it focuses much more on telling the stories of impact and those stories of change in our community. And let's talk about the email. My number one request is, can I put this in the bulletin? Our weekly bulletin, we don't advertise a lot of the things coming up. We don't have the space for it. And there's so much going on that we have moved most of that into This Week at Plymouth. It's your weekly e-newsletter. If you're not signed up for it, please sign up for it, because everything you need to know about what's going on in the coming weeks is located in this email that we send out. So we have Dwayne's message, we have upcoming events, we highlight our new members, as you can see, things like that. It all goes into here. It is our most effective and easiest way for you to get the information that you want.
And part of it's to recognize that hopefully we all know what email is, and hopefully we're all used to receiving that. And the idea is, most of us, we're busy people. And, oh, right, there's that thing that's happening. And it's happening, oh, it's tomorrow. Where is it? Well, you probably go to your device and you look for the most recent email. Like that's, so we're trying to help people be more in the moment and to connect. We'll talk about the website next, but to make sure that electronic communications are giving you the more immediate, like the next thing on your list, the next thing coming up, versus printed materials are more of a recap of what has occurred. So we're using printed materials in terms of capturing what happened and the results that happened, and then we're using things like email. Almost, if you think about this email, it's like a website in a way. So if you were thinking about, well, what's happening this Thursday, you get to the This Week at Plymouth email, and It's just a long resource of, here's what's happening Wednesday, here's what's happening there's the link for the thing on Thursday. And it's clickable so I can go sign up or find the recap, et cetera. So we're trying to make things actionable and easy to find.
That's what I was going to say. Like, so we are trying, with all of these things that you're seeing, this week at Plymouth, the Flame, when we get to the website, things like that, our goal is to make it easy. Like, we want to make it welcoming, all of it, to everybody, like that you could find the information you need and that the link is readily available and that it's interesting. So you'll see there's more imagery, more graphic work, and more designs to capture your image and still convey the message. So part of that is making it feel more welcoming and to draw your attention to the things and give you the information in an appealing way. And that brings us to the website. So in 2020, and when I started, this was a very static piece. It was used as an advertising piece, and it provided information about our church, but it provided very little dynamic content or anything that was coming up, like very few of our events, very few of our information was on there. Maybe you could find it on the event calendar. This is another thing that COVID changed. For 2 years, this was your avenue into the church. When you couldn't come into the building, everything was available on plymouth.org. So now we also use this to make this as easy as possible to find the information. There are the sliding images across the top. We have these buttons with pictures and brief descriptions on them, or like down on the bottom, and then a couple of quick links on the bottom of the page. That's to serve up to you what's going on as easy as possible so that you can find it. This is going to continue to evolve. I can see all of these resources are evolving as we hear feedback, as we talk through things, as we think about the people we're talking to. So Plymouth.org is another thing that we're looking at, right? Everyone has an opinion on what they need to find as soon as possible, right? And what is the most important thing going on? We all have an opinion, so we talk as a committee about which are the things that need to be prioritized. Who are the audiences we're trying to reach? As we're doing these marketing campaigns and we're reaching new people, what does their experience look like when they're first interacting with the church through our website, and what information are they going to need to know? So those are all things that we look at and we talk about and that we're planning for in the future as we consider to think about how this evolves. And our social media. So many churches have turned to live streaming. We as well have turned to live streaming on both Facebook and YouTube, as well as Vimeo and our website, or all the places you can find our worship live stream. We've launched podcasts where you can listen to conversations with Beth and Seth. Those have been put on hiatus for a while. Or Chris Bonhoff puts out two podcasts every week. So.
So social kind of plays two roles. One, there's a chance for us as a church to produce and promote the content about what we're doing here. There's an event, there's a speaker, there's an activity, etc. And a lot of the work that we're trying to do on that front is to take imagery from members. So there are some members of our church who are really good with their smartphones or their cameras of capturing the ebb and flow of our life here at the church. We're trying to identify those folks and say, hey, we just saw you taking a bunch of pictures at this event. Could we have them, please? Because we want that content to be shared out, to be organic, or to encourage our members who, hey, were you planning to share those images on Instagram? Fantastic. Would you mind tagging us so that we can all benefit from this message? Because the more people who are sharing what we're doing inside the walls of the building, the better. On the other level, which we're going to talk about, is that we as a church pay to promote certain messages on Facebook and on Instagram, etc. And those messages are, as we'll talk about for the fall campaign, are meant to target specific people to help them become aware that we exist. And then hopefully gain some interest in coming to see us. But if they also discover, oh, here's a parent and they're sharing their great adventure at Plymouth, or here's someone else talking about a Sunday forum that they found inspiring, the more that content exists out there, the more other people will stumble across us and what we're doing here. That's kind of the point. So, which is to say, there's a lot of things out there, and so we're both listening and monitoring to try to understand what are other people saying about us, what are we as a church body saying about ourselves, but then what can we do to leverage that information to make sure that the messages that we want to promote are as promoted as loudly as they can be.
And so, yeah, that's one of the places where we do promote. We promote those messages. We do our advertising, and we talk about the things that we're doing here, the things that are coming up. We do a lot of advertising, our upcoming events, things like that. And the best way that you can help within this is interacting with anything that Plymouth posts. Even if you click on it, if you like it, if you share it, once in a while we'll post a, hey, we have this beautiful inspiration, what inspires you, or what do you find beautiful in the world? And the more that you interact with our post, the more that it both is served up to you, but then other people as well in the community, and it helps our marketing efforts and our reach out there.
You may have heard this word algorithm, right? You've probably heard that in relation to a lot of social media. It's fairly simple, which is to say, more than likely everybody in this room is on Facebook or Instagram or something like that. If you see something, if you're following Plymouth, great. If you're not, please do. Something shows up and you click the little heart button or the like button, all that does is tell the algorithm, hey, another person liked this. And the more people that like something, the more the algorithm goes, oh, well, this must be popular, right? So if you can help us, help the church, show that, well, more people seem to like this stuff, that helps us, broadly speaking, with the robots. And I want to help the robots.
Help the robots help us.
Yes, help the robots help us.
So I look at churches like Plymouth and a couple other churches, like we have an important message. We offer value, we offer welcoming, sanctuary. We are lifting people up and helping them live better lives and know that they are loved, accepted, appreciated, and bring value to any community. That is not the message of every community out there. So social media to me is one of the ways that we can make a difference out there and we can share our story. So
huge, yeah. What's next? Oh yeah. And the welcome table.
And the welcome table and our bulletin boards. So our welcome table is another thing that evolved a little bit. We used to have literature racks. We don't do those anymore. They became outdated very quickly. They got dusty, papers were folded, they were hard to maintain. The welcome table houses information pertaining to Plymouth. So our events and things like that. Some things from our members, like we've got our book from one of our earlier Sunday forums up there. And our contemplation booklets, pick one of those up. And then we also advertise on our bulletin board. So we've offered a couple of the bulletin boards up to some of the boards or outreach, or if we have a theater group coming in, we've used it that way. Last Easter, I filled it with artwork from children from Ukraine. So I purchased their artwork and put it up on the bulletin board. So the focus is to display those materials relevant in a branded way that people are interested in from Plymouth. We were talking about Target earlier, and now I almost said Target.
That's all right.
So this brings us then, last but not least, here's our marketing committee and all of our wonderful folks on that committee who have worked very hard to help us define what our strategies are, where our priorities are, and what we should be focusing on with marketing all of the many, many stories of Plymouth. Yeah. And now it's Tim's turn.
All right. So with that said, one of the main tasks of that committee coming out of the task force that I mentioned from last fall was to develop our first formal marketing campaign to go and promote Plymouth Church. And we could have targeted, broadly speaking, anybody, but that's inefficient. And so we looked at, I think initially at roughly 10 types of potential audiences. As an example, people who have recently moved to the neighborhood, right? So and let's just define the neighborhood as, the Mississippi River or downtown in through kind of like, call it a 20-minute walk, right, is the radius of the building. So that's a potential audience. Families with young children, by which we mean you've got at least one kid who is pre-confirmation, so you have a reason to stick around. You're a family, so you're looking for a church, right? And you're looking for things for your family to do as it relates to a church, and you're within a 15-minute drive of the campus. So that was another audience. I think we had about 6 or 8. Gene, I can't remember exactly, but
retired people moving downtown.
right. Yeah, so the reason we think about those audiences is that, again, speaking of algorithms, we can target them. So most of our outbound tools are going to be Instagram, Facebook, et cetera, digital channels. And those channels allow us to target people by age, by income, by specifically where they live. And a lot of this is to say, if we're going to talk about events and programming that are relevant to families with young children, the key is to show that content to those people and not to people who maybe don't have young children and wouldn't be interested. So it helps us target. So that felt like that was the first goal, was figure out, well, who do we want to talk to initially? I'm going to talk a little bit about some work that we're going to do this spring and this summer that's coming up. But first thing was figure out who we're going to talk to. So families with young children was the first audience that we got to, and I'm going to walk you through basically the bones of what a digital campaign is. Long story short, it works. We can directly attribute this last fall we had some new members. Two of the members were families who said, oh yeah, we saw your ads on Facebook, we clicked on them, we came, someone greeted us, we felt welcomed, we went to programming, we felt like our family belongs here, and so we joined. That's pretty great.
Tim, can I just emphasize, you mentioned several steps there.
Yep.
Just their awareness online.
Yeah.
Other things were so important.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that is part of it.
So here, let's talk about architecture. So it's 2023, how do you help people who lead busy lives to kind of figure out that, like, hey, Plymouth is the right place for me? Well, everyone's on their smartphone, they're using digital channels. You know, if you're a parent and you're thinking, well, I do feel like church might be the right thing for us, you might go to Google and you might type in family church. We're going to show up there. We want to show up as a search result. We're paying to show up in that search result. So we build a pool of keywords: progressive, Christian, family, youth, etc., that you go to Google to search for those words, we're going to show up with a message that says, hey, we're a welcoming Christian, progressive church for families with young children, right? So on the other side, on the social side, people are scrolling through Instagram or Facebook. Hey, maybe you're a family that's interested in sustainability and climate change. We're a church that's got some solar panels on the roof, and we do a lot of work around climate change. Maybe that's the avenue that you discover Plymouth, right? So we built out 12 themes, everything from racial justice to activities for youth to climate change to
Arts, diversity,
Yeah.
freedom to explore and to ask questions.
Yeah,
and
no dogma, etc. Right. So we built out these 12 themes, and then we built out a body of ads that appeared on Instagram and Facebook, as well as some ads that appeared on Google search. Put all those things out there, and then what you do is you let the robots tell you which ones are working. Essentially, like, we put them out there, and if people click on them, that's good. If they don't click on them, well, we learned something, right? And so, from an engagement standpoint, what we discovered when we're targeting families with young children, topics like racial justice were more interesting than some of the other ones. Diverse programs. That can mean everything from a range of things to do to programs that talk about diversity, right? Arts, obviously, is a thing that was attractive. The idea of no dogma, that we're not going to tell you what to believe, was interesting. And the fact that, we're 137 years old, but we're still kind of modern. We're, at least on the paid social side, were topics that people were clicking on more than they were clicking on other ones. Within the text search space, a church without dogma and the idea that we're progressive were also interesting to people. And to just kind of go back. So people clicked on those ads, they wind up at a landing page, a website page that's specific to that topic. And then our goal is that they might click on a button that said something like, help create change. All of these were generated. So we probably built 20-something landing pages, 60-something social ads. We built a lot of stuff to kind of put it out there, in part to kind of get a sense of what's interesting to the audience that's out there. We kind of want to learn as much as create traffic. And so people clicked on things, they wind up at landing pages, and then kind of go, okay, well, now I know, here's Plymouth, I know what the next event is, I know that services are at 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock. Now I'm going to show up at the building, and voila, You get people wearing, your vests. So this is to say, one of the outcomes from the task force was to recognize, sure, we can put messaging out there. We can spend money, spend our treasure to promote Plymouth to a bunch of people. But if you walk in the door, someone doesn't make eye contact with you and say, hi, hello, and help you find your way through this elaborate campus, we're going to fail. It's a money, it's a waste of money. So a big learning from the task force and a big effort was to create what we call the ambassadors. There's a lengthy article about the ambassador program that's in the latest Flame. But essentially, what we have are, I think, 8 individuals currently. You get to wear, you can be one too, by the way. You get to wear a vest. We have fleece vests, we have buttons, we have hats with a pom-pom or without a pom-pom, your choice. But what happens is we're going to walk you through a brief training on church history. So if someone comes and says, what is congregationalism? We can help you have a quick one-sentence answer. Well, how long has Plymouth been around? Oh, we've actually been a church longer than Minneapolis has been a city. And where have we been? Well, we've been downtown in this building here. We've been here for X number of years. What is Plymouth? What's going on? So helping people, arming you with answers to pretty specific questions, but then also knowing, hey, it's Sunday the 5th. What else is happening? Well, there's a forum at 10 o'clock and they're going to talk about marketing, right? So when people come in and they're there for a purpose, this is your first time in the building, we want to guide you to where are you trying to go? You're trying to get to the chapel? Where is the chapel? You're trying to get to the sanctuary? Where is the sanctuary? You're trying to get to the con theater? Where is that? Oh, do you need to use the restroom? The point is to kind of help people get to where they need to go. If they're looking for something for their kids to do, oh, here's Nina, right? So we've worked with Nina to introduce, or proxies for Nina, to help connect the dots. So as people come in, they're not wandering around and no one's helping them. Because we recognize the greeters behind the desk, their job is to greet. Their job isn't to grab you by the hand and walk you to where you need. They need to stay behind the desk. So ambassadors are floating around, helping people get from point A to point B. The reason we're looking for more ambassadors is pretty natural, right? There's a lot of activities here at Plymouth. Right now, the ambassadors do Sundays. That's it. It would be awesome if we had more volunteer ambassadors for concerts or other activities so that, hey, there's something happening on Tuesday night, here's a sign up, I'm available, or someone's available, that we could have someone in a vest there to just greet people so that as folks are coming in for a concert or an activity or whatever,
Theater production.
Yeah, there's someone there who can represent Plymouth and explain, for anyone who's curious, well, who are we? What is this place that I've come to? What is this venue? So
our primary focus there is to provide this welcoming environment, right? And so I also want to encourage, as much as we need more official ambassadors in the cool swag, and the swag is totally worth it, we also want to encourage everyone and help everyone feel comfortable being an ambassador, whether official or not, and welcoming and greeting those people coming in through the door. That was part of the program. Is we want to teach and encourage everyone at Plymouth that when you're here, you are part of the experience for anyone new coming in. And as much as a smile and a hi and a greet can go a long way in making anyone feel welcome.
yeah.
So that, and
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if we're successful with the ambassador program, we won't need the vests anymore because all of you will naturally be ambassadors, right? So that's how do we, and a lot of us have been around for a while. We recognize that Plymouth, maybe we haven't been very ambassadorial, right? So this is an overt attempt to try to help provoke ourselves to be more of a welcoming body of people as they come in and greet them and help them get acclimated. I think activities like One More Chair are a perfect example of the next step in that, right? So ambassadors are very pragmatic, get you from point A to point B. In that conversation, walking you to a venue, we might ask you, like, well, if this interests you, or would you like to be on the Friday email? Which we just talked about. You would? Oh, great. Let's write down your name and your email address. Boom, now we've got your name. And we use we've got a system, a piece of software that we use to track new members. So as we capture emails of new people and they get added to the list, we're now thinking of them from a marketing standpoint in terms of how do we make sure that individual is connected with and are they coming back? right? So if we see that they come back, we can mark that in the system. If they don't come back, well, whoever greeted them, maybe that person could send them an email to say, hey, it was great seeing you 2 weeks ago. You were interested in a particular activity, that's why you came. Did you know that there's another activity kind of like that coming up in a week or two? So how do we help people feel nurtured and welcomed and things like this? So that's essentially what we're trying to do with all of the digital work and the ambassador program.
Well, and it helps our staff and our clergy as well, because they ask me every week, who was this new person? Did anyone capture their name? Can I talk to them? I want to follow up with this person and invite them back next week. So it's helping our staff and everybody follow up. Where there wasn't a process before, we're getting that in place.
Yep. Okay, so what next? Long story short, we're going to continue to try and attract families with young children because we found that system is working, so we're going to keep doing that. We're working on 2 new campaigns. One is to look at lapsed members. What does lapsed constitute? That's being defined, working with Beth and Doug to kind of gather names and addresses and emails, and will that be a digital campaign or a direct mail campaign? I don't know yet, but the idea is we all know, dozens, if not maybe hundreds of people who used to come here regularly and for various reasons aren't. How do we help identify why aren't they coming back? Maybe they're doing it all online, which is fantastic. But the idea is how do we help those folks feel an attraction to come back to Plymouth? The second campaign that we're looking at is that idea of folks who've moved. You've probably noticed a fair number of new buildings around here or have known people who've moved downtown. That cohort of folks, how do we help people realize, you know, I no longer live out in Laconia or wherever. Where's my new church home? Where could be a walkable church, an urban campus? So we're looking at that as a theme, continuing to recruit ambassadors, and then we're also you've seen a lot of work here. We're trying to assess, can this one person sustain all of this? Probably not. So what does that look like from a staffing standpoint as we report up to leadership about the volume of work that's being done? And then, of course, we're also gathering data to kind of ask ourselves, you know, Plymouth.org, the current iteration of it is roughly 3 or 4 years old, maybe 5 years old. Older?
The actual website itself is 10 years old at least.
It's old. So it's going to need to be, but that's a cost and it takes a long time. So trying to evaluate, all right, where do we put that into the budget? Where do we put that into the sequence of things? So how can you help? Well, you could be an ambassador. We'd love to have you. We basically pull 2 different shifts. There's one sort of earlier, one a little bit later. And the more that we have folks involved in this, the more we can then, we're getting a lot of requests saying, can the ambassadors show up for this activity or this activity? And right now we're saying, no, they're just focused on Sundays. But if we get more people volunteering, then we can certainly cover more events. And then, of course, we'd love to have you share the story. I mean, you're aware of a cool thing that's happening here and an interesting thing that's happening there. If we don't hear about it from you, it's hard for us to put it into the flame. It's hard to put it into the email. So sharing information with Elizabeth as kind of a central point is key to us being able to evangelize and promote all of the great things that Plymouth is currently doing. So what do you think? Is that it? I think that's it.
That's it.
All right. So we got Q&A. Questions? Hands are up. We got a microphone that's going to pass around.
Do we know what the impact of the tent has been?
The question was the impact of the tent. I would say it's anecdotal. Probably don't have like empirical foot traffic because I think we do count numbers of bodies that are in the tent.
We try to count numbers of bodies at worship service and in the tent.
Right.
We try. People move. I think the tent, what we did hear, though, is that it did have a really big impact in making people feel welcome. We had people walking in off the street. We had people who saw the tent and just wandered in because it was a safe space for them to explore how our community was. And it was safe, especially during COVID, that we could be in community and have a space that was good. So it does seem to be a really good way to invite community members and people in the neighborhood into our church without the intimidation factor of walking through those front doors into our lobby.
Right. Yeah. That's not a marketing question per se. I think we're part of that conversation. It's an expensive endeavor. you know. the
Are we
question
going
was
to continue
with the tent?
with the tent?
Yeah, will we continue with the tent? That's more of an operational leadership question, I think, given the you know, it's not inexpensive. And how effective is it is kind of, I think, an ongoing question that we're trying to resolve.
I'm John Cairns. I'm on the Deacons, and I was on the Growth Task Force. So from the marketing standpoint, we couldn't have imagined anything better than what you're doing, so thank you.
Thank you.
I want to mention an internal marketing question to see what you could do. Bryce Hamilton, I don't know if anybody else is here, and I are on the nomination committee to fill out our boards and other leadership positions. I think we could really use that as an internal marketing tool, because in the last few years, we haven't had that many applicants. And we do have a number of people leaving the committees right now and boards. So I would hope you might, within your committee, think about that. And the marketing committee, the nomination committee is meeting for the first time on the 16th of March.
Yep.
So I'm going to drop a note to Elizabeth Glidden, who's the chair, and see if it might be appropriate to have one of your committee actually be part of that process, so you can see what we're trying to do.
Yeah. So I was at the last leadership council meeting. That was a top topic of kind of, it was mentioned like, oh yeah, nominations are coming up, and yeah, what are we going to do? And you know, we've kind of got our old habits, ways that we've followed things. How can we help people become aware that this is an opportunity? So I agree with you, and I feel like one of the things that we can work on is assembling, beyond the Friday email, like how else can we let folks realize that there are, you know, given our new governance, there are ways in which members can serve, and part of that is suggesting nominations or being a part of that nominating process and illuminating, right, the system that exists. Because I feel like those who are involved know it exists, but there's a great number of people who are unaware that, oh, I too could be a member of a committee, part of a group, et cetera, et cetera. And how do I go about doing that? So I think that's something that we absolutely can work on promoting. Yeah.
We only got 3 months to do it. So.
Yeah. Well, we'll get cracking. Yeah. Question.
A two-part practical question. First of all, you mentioned the welcome table and the bulletin board, and I'm not clear where the bulletin board is. I see the display up on the wall. Is that what you mean by bulletin board?
Nope, so outside of Guild Hall over there are 5 or 6 bulletin boards.
Okay, yes, I get it.
So,
And then the other thing is, our official address is 1900 Nicollet, but everybody comes in through 1919 LaSalle. So I don't know if that's a problem, a barrier, or how you deal with it.
So
Tim's looking at me. We are more and more advertising events as going to 1919 LaSalle, because when you Google it or look for directions, that will take you to our front door instead of over there on the other side where you can't get in. But there are still places, like on our website, where we have to list our official address for 1900.
So, yeah, so there's the postal address, you know, and then there's the actionable sort of, in the age of Google, where do I click to get my car to the right place address? And that ties into another thing that we're continuing to discover. Oh, as an example this week, someone pointed out that if you go to Yelp, which you might go to Yelp to look for restaurants or a hairdresser or something like, well, people go there for churches too, and the information about Plymouth is wrong. Okay, so how do we help Yelp recognize that that information is inaccurate? There's another website, some organization, of church organization group that aggregates data about churches. Their list and their stuff about Plymouth is outdated. So one of the tasks that we do is kind of, we're out there looking at all of the different digital detritus, the signals that are out there, and trying to make sure, oh, this one wasn't updated, has been updated for 10 years. So how do we ensure that those things are up to date? And a lot of it's just kind of whack-a-mole. You know, you kind of discover that someone sends an email and says, I've discovered this thing. And you're like, oh, great. Well, let's see if we can address it. So, but to your point about getting people here, yeah, one of the learnings is that the actual postal address isn't driving people to the correct place. And so when we do addresses that are clickable or part of an invite, we're using the more
1919.
actionable 1919 address, but for, printed pieces, we say the postal address. Yeah. Pass the microphone back, or yeah, we got one there.
I can see that.
This is for the Zoom.
For the
Yeah.
Zoom.
So are back copies of the Flame available on the welcome table? That's question one. Is that yes?
Well, we just have the last issue available on the welcome table. I can get you a back copy if you would like an older one. You can request it from me, or they are posted online.
Okay.
So this design is brand new. So sort of when you say back copies, could refer to like prior design.
The last copy is.
Those are all archived,
fine.
yeah,
Okay.
online, yep.
Second question, how are you measuring the impact of digital or of the online viewers? I know you probably can't tell individually who's viewing online,
Right.
but how's that trend going? Is it subsiding? Is the in-person membership? So how are you measuring online viewers?
Slats, you got an answer for us?
I'll try to help you here, Slat. So the AV team has been keeping track of the people who are watching live, and they track that really well. We're also able to go back through YouTube, Facebook, and Vimeo to see how many people have watched it, how long they've watched it, and we even have some really interesting stats, like which country people are watching from, or which state. We have people tuning in from multiple countries. I think when I did the annual report, I counted 13 different countries that people are watching from, or like many different states. So also, I didn't mention the annual report. Last year we changed the layout, we added some quick facts. We have more of those up at the front desk. I'm like, but that's another tool.
So to your point, Plymouth Church is no longer just the physical building that people attend. We have people tuning in from all over the world, from different parts. I have friends of mine who call it church shopping, on the Sunday, like, oh, let's tune into church in Atlanta or wherever, right? Because they happen to like that. So part of this is recognizing that we have a responsibility to that audience as well. And so one of the things that I think we're working on, is that a function of marketing, or is that merely a function of worship? That's an interesting overlap that we're looking at and trying to to kind of the idea of communicating out this out to the congregation. I think one of the areas that we're looking at both for the Flame and for the leadership committee the leadership council is to help them understand on a monthly basis, where are we trending in terms of our digital audience, purely digital audience, like how many people are tuning in, how long are they watching for, where are they primarily tuning in from?
Where are they coming from?
Right.
If they're clicking on one of our ads, what pages are they going to? And then what pages are they going to next? So
Right.
we can see all of that on there. We can see how many unique visitors, how many new visitors, everything like that. We have the data for.
So look, that will be an area in which we will be revealing and illuminating more as we go forward. It's just a matter of finding the time to do it.
It is almost like we have too much information to put it into any way to report it out.
Yeah.
But
Question back there.
So just wondering about, can you tell us a few actual stats about right now, about how many people are listening online or watching online today versus last year, just whatever comes to your mind?
so last year Slats is pulling up who's watching right now.
So right now, one of the things we do is we track, the AV stream tracks during events, so we can also get a sense of who's tuning in at the time of the event versus who's coming in and watching after. We tend to be lower on forums, because right now we've got like 5 on YouTube, and
Hello.
others will watch later. But we have been, I don't have the link to the spreadsheet. We've got the
Okay.
spreadsheet to track all of the different ways we stream, and who's watching. We'll also know, like, if it's a holiday weekend or something.
So I would say trending wise, we've had fewer people tuning in online, but we are still reaching a significant number of people. So I pulled the stats for Christmas and everything like that, and last year we had over 1,000 people watching or viewing our service, and this year we had closer to 200 to 400.
And so
Are those stats available online?
No.
Like the spreadsheet?
we're going to work on making that available. Yep. All right, there's more. Oh, we got one there, and then we'll pass it up.
midweek mingle.
Yeah.
I haven't seen much about it. If you haven't come to it, it's absolutely wonderful to sit and talk with people that you don't know, and children, people of all ages. And we always want to have more people coming to the chapel singers to sing. That follows the midweek mingle. But I was just wondering about that being something to
Right.
market
Yeah,
for the
so
neighborhood and for people.
Midweek Mingle, think of it as a story that ebbs and flows every Wednesday, right? And by the way, I would encourage, if you don't like cooking food, but you like to eat food, and you're around on Wednesdays, you should drive here. And anytime between 5:30 and 7, there's food, which you don't have to cook, and you can enjoy, and you can enjoy it with all kinds of different people. And yeah, to your point, it's like, oh, now I'm talking to you, and now I'm talking to you, and kids are running around, it's fun. And then if you want to go do an activity, you can go do an activity. But that story, we've got a lot of photos, and we're gathering more photos, and we're gathering anecdotes about what that is. Have we packaged it up to promote it? No, but we're planning on it. And so we're building those assets so that probably our second wave of the families with young children, we're trying to figure out, is that appealing? Because it's not, people think of church as Sundays, so we're trying to figure out how to position that to become appealing to, it may be a part of the lapsed member campaign, it may be part of our second, but yes, we are working on turning that content, that activity, into a story that we can tell more effectively.
It's also fun for us old people.
It's fun for everybody. Everybody gets to have the fun.
I'm going to correct him a little bit, because when we launched Midweek Mingle, we did do some pretty extensive advertising, and This Week at Plymouth on the website and the Facebook and in the Flame. And Marie does write an article about what's coming up in the Flame pretty much every season. But we did tone it down, because sometimes people stop paying attention to the advertising out there, and it is probably time to put something else out.
Yeah.
Thanks for this good work. So I'm going to ask a question about target audiences, but I just want to give a little prelude. The Campus Task Force worked all last year to try and figure out how can we have more authentic, two-way loving relations with our neighbors and neighborhood groups. And we've given the report to the deacons, and now over this next several months, the deacons want to have conversations with the congregation to tell you what we learned, and also what do you think, and how can we do this more effectively. So I'm just interested in whether you see our neighbors as an audience, or whether gradually you can develop an audience that is the people who live around us, live and work around us.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think that when we were doing the initial task force plan, that was a distinct, clear audience, recognizing that there was a group doing that assessment, doing that work. And so I would say on the agenda for the marketing committee is that we need to receive that information, and then it becomes a question of what are the right mechanisms for communicating with that audience. If they're physically close in, is it signage, is it direct mail, is it digital? What might those things be? So all of these things are sort of a complex interaction of, well, what's the programming, meaning what are the people doing, and then how do we create the assets and then send that out to the right people so that they know that it exists. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you all very much. Please stay engaged. Share your stories with us so that we can share them more broadly.
Thank you, Tim and Elizabeth, for presenting and for all your work. I don't know, it's mind-blowing how much work you've done.
That's fun. It's worth it.
Good.
I like my job.
Great. So I just wanted to remind everyone, next week, Anthony Stately, who is the executive officer and president of the Native American Community Clinic, will be speaking and about their work. And I know they were planning a big expansion that we found out about after he agreed to speak. So I'm guessing that'll be part of his presentation, but I think it'll be fascinating. So hope you can make it. Have a good Sunday. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Well done.
Good job.